Have you ever felt totally and completely trapped by your schedule? You know that feeling like you're working all the time, but you're not actually getting anywhere? Well, today we're going to dive into a story about a guy named David who felt exactly that way. And we're going to explore how one single chance encounter completely flipped his relationship with time and, well, ultimately changed his entire life. And this, right here, this was David's reality. He'd see videos online about side hustles and just get angry. And this thought was his shield. It's that really deep-seated belief that I think a lot of us have, that we just don't have the time to go after the things we really want. Okay, so what did this no-time life actually look like for David? Well, it was a cycle, a perfect and perfectly frustrating loop that just kept him running in place. Let's really break down what his typical day was like. So David's day was just a blur of being reactive. He'd wake up late, already behind, rush through his morning, and then spend the entire workday just putting out fires. Answering a flood of emails, sitting in endless meetings, replying to messages. By the time he got home, he was just drained. And after some family time, his only escape was hours of mindless scrolling on his phone, which, of course, just stole sleep from the next day and started the whole exhausting cycle all over again. And this right here, it just captures the whole problem. David was incredibly busy. His calendar was packed, but it was exactly like running on a treadmill. He was burning a massive amount of energy every single day, but he was going absolutely nowhere. So this cycle finally broke one weekend. He had this conversation with a cousin who had actually started a business while working a full-time job, and it planted this little seed of curiosity. And that curiosity led David to a bookstore and to a chance meeting with this mentor figure he ended up calling Dr. Book, who gave him a challenge that would become his very first step towards freedom. So Dr. Book introduced David to a core principle from Peter Drucker's classic book, The Effective Executive. And the idea is actually really simple. You cannot manage what you do not measure. So forget planning your time for a minute. The very first non-negotiable step is to just find out where your time is actually going. And that's time logging. The challenge itself was pretty straightforward, but it definitely required some discipline. For 1 week, David had to track every single hour. No sugarcoating, no wishful thinking, just an honest hour-by-hour account of his life. From the second he woke up to the moment he fell asleep. The goal wasn't to judge himself, but just to gather the cold, hard data. And the results were a complete shock. I mean, look at this. Nearly half his time was just lost to distractions and scrolling. And that tiny little 5% sliver, that was the only time he was doing deep, focused, meaningful work. The audit revealed this crucial truth. His time wasn't gone, it was being stolen by things that just didn't matter. And he also realized the only uninterrupted block of time he had was super early in the morning. But here's the thing. Finding the time was only half the battle. Dr. Book explained that having a free hour or two is basically useless without a powerful reason to use it. And this is where the focus shifts from just managing activities to actually making a contribution. Think about it this way, right? Answering emails is an activity. Building a system that reduces email is a contribution. Attending meetings is an activity. Creating a whole new product is a contribution. See the difference? Activities keep you busy, but contributions are what actually move you forward. To really drive this point home, Dr. Book told David a story. So a man walks up to 3 bricklayers and asks the first one what he's doing. The bricklayer, clearly annoyed, just grunts back, "I'm laying bricks." He only sees the task, the repetitive, tiring, immediate activity right there in front of his face. Then he moves on to the second bricklayer and asks the same exact question. This man looks up and says, "I'm building a wall." Okay, so he has a slightly bigger perspective. He can see how his individual actions are combining to create something larger, a tangible outcome of his work. And finally, he asks the third bricklayer, who's working with this incredible energy and has a smile on his face. This man's face just lights up. "I'm building a great cathedral for God," he says, "a place where people will find peace." Now, this bricklayer wasn't just doing a job. He was part of a grand purpose. He was making a contribution. And that is the mindset that fuels real motivation. So once you've found your cathedral, your big contribution, how do you carve out the time to actually build it? Well, it's not about adding more to your plate. It's actually about taking things off. Dr. Book taught David about the 2 most important lists any effective person can make. First up, the stop doing list. These are the tasks that eat up your time but add zero value. Think about those meetings you have to attend where you have absolutely no input. Second, there's the offload list. These are the tasks that have to get done, but not necessarily by you. See, effectiveness is about ruthless elimination and delegation to free you up for your unique contribution. Okay, now we get to the core psychological hurdle, because you can have the time and you can have the purpose, but none of it matters if you can't win that little battle that happens in your head every single morning. We all know this debate, right? The alarm goes off and the negotiation begins. Ugh, just 5 more minutes. Maybe I'll start tomorrow. This daily back and forth, this decision-making process, it just drains your willpower before the day has even properly begun, and that leads to inconsistency and ultimately failure. Dr. Book's most powerful piece of advice was this: stop having the debate. Instead of making hundreds of low-quality, sleepy decisions every morning, you make one single, high-quality decision once. You decide, I wake up at 6 a.m. And that's it. It is no longer up for discussion. It becomes a non-negotiable rule. And that single shift preserves your willpower for the work that actually matters. So, what happened when David combined all of these principles? Well, the result wasn't instant, but the compound effect over just 1 year was absolutely transformative. By just waking up early and focusing on his contribution, the progress really started to build. It began with small steps, like writing some articles. Then he built a website. Then came the first few sales. And within 9 months, the momentum was strong enough for him to actually quit his job. By the end of the year, he had built a real, sustainable business. And this wasn't just some small side project anymore. This number, it represents the tangible result of that one firm decision he made a year earlier. He had built a business with over 1,000 regular customers buying his health products. He had truly, finally, built his cathedral. And this brings us right back to the beginning, full circle. A year later, David, who's now a creator himself, reads a comment on one of his videos. And it's the exact same cynical thought he had at the start of his own journey. But now, instead of feeling anger, he just smiles. He gets it. He understands that perspective. And he just wishes that person finds their own Dr. Book. So David's story really shows us that breaking the no-time cycle isn't about some magic productivity hack. It's about knowing your time, finding your contribution, and making one firm, non-negotiable decision to just get started, which really leaves just one question for you. What will yours be?